Hi, welcome to Sylvie's technique vlog. If you're new to my technique vlogs, the reason we call it a vlog is because it's me talking about, thinking about, analyzing, picking apart techniques that I'm currently working on. So they're not necessarily demonstrational or instructional. It's not like this is the way you do this one thing and this is how it beats something else. It's not really like that. It's kind of something that I've come upon maybe because of someone that I was filming with for the Muay Thai library, or even someone that I filmed with years ago and now suddenly it makes sense to me. And so now I'm able to integrate it into my training. And so I come and I talk about kind of what's difficult about it, what's interesting about it, what I'm experiencing as I'm working on it. I have a shorter version, which is public, and basically the purpose of that is to introduce the technique and what I'm working on and why I'm working on it. And then you can immediately just take it with you to the gym or at home or however you train and try it out yourself and basically see how it works for you and find your own things about it. And then I have a much longer, more detailed, more involved version for my patrons, where I talk in more detail about what I'm using it for in my training, how it's coming about in my sparring, things like this, just much more information in the longer form for my patrons. So in this technique vlog, I'm going to be talking about something that I've talked about in pieces before in other technique vlogs, but again, in the technique vlog, you learn a technique over time, you play with it over time, and you find like different details and angles and elements to it that aren't immediately available the first time you try it or the first time you see it. And I find that really cool about techniques. So something I've talked about before is kind of balance, roop, where your feet are, and where your head is. So this is kind of like all of those pieces coming together. I've made technique vlogs on each of those pieces. And what I'm working on now is kind of like taking all those building blocks and seeing that I have this whole other little house structure that I'm working on now. So previously I've talked about kind of making sure you don't blow out your line is what I call it. So basically if you have like a frame where you're on balance like this, if you're coming to hit the bag, you don't want to go over your leg to try to like land something, because now you're off balance and you have to rebalance yourself and you lose power. And it's if you end up getting caught while you're in this weird position, it's actually quite dangerous. It can have bigger repercussions than it should, kind of thing. So I've talked about the head kind of going like this and knowing where your head is and knowing where your feet are. But what I'm working on right now is where my head is kind of forward and back. This came to my attention again. This has been a problem for me for many, many years. It's so much better now. Like I've improved so much from how I really was like hurling forward with my head before. So much better. But the better you get, the more detailed your criticisms and more detailed your critique and like feeling where you are becomes, which is really good. That's how you become better, and that's how you know you're better, is that it's like really, really tiny things and you can feel them. So when I was filming with Kaisawit Norpatia, who is the newest entry into the Muay Thai library as of the time that this is being filmed, he has seen me fight many times because he's actually the promoter in Hua Hin, who I fight for. So he has watched me in fighting, which necessarily is a little bit different from how you look in training, just because the pressures are different. And he was saying that my weight is too far forward. He's saying don't throw your weight forward because then you lose your ability to access other parts of your body. This is a really big thing to me. When your weight is not correct, like when it's too far one way, too far the other way, or if you kind of like don't know where it is, it slows you down. It's only milliseconds, but it really does slow you down. And so I kind of, in that session and actually voicing that session, became re-aware of my head being a little bit too far forward, and all of a sudden so many things made sense. I was like, that's why I come down weird off of my kicks. Like all of a sudden I felt it. And so one of the ways that you can feel this, and this is what you can just take with you immediately to wherever you train and work with it immediately, is that if you kick and when you come down off of your kicks, you kind of like come forward or you have a hard time rebalancing yourself coming back, this is because your head is too far forward. The head being too far forward is also where your hips are. So if your hips are in a weird place, your head is going to be in a weird place. And if your head's in a weird place, it's going to throw your hips in a weird place because you have to balance yourself. So basically, if you're like me, when you're throwing a kick, if you come down kind of like this, it's because your head is too far forward. So you should be able to throw it and come down and kind of be right back into your neutral position. This is because my head is not lurching forward. if I'm punching like this and my opponent starts to move, and I'm just kind of like falling forward on them like this is because my head is slightly too far forward. So what I need to make sure is that my head and my hips are aligned. That doesn't mean that I have to like overcorrect. You don't want to over lean back either. If you're kicking like this and coming down like that, your head's too far back. So this technique vlog and what I've been thinking about is, one, just being aware of where your head is and where your balance is. And I've been a little bit frustrated because in my sparring, I've actually become aware of how much my head is too far forward. It's frustrating because it's all the time, but what's really good about it is that being aware that it's all the time means that I'm now attuned to where my head is. So even though it's wrong all the time, knowing that it's wrong is the first step and kind of like the first 9 steps, and then you correct it and it becomes something else after that. But so for me, when I'm trying to feel where my head is, I don't want to come to... Hey, so my phone overheated and shut down, so I lost the end of that video. So I'm just going to finish my thought with this, which is that the way that I kind of introduce this technique is your head being too far forward. Sometimes your head is too far backwards. My technique vlog is on my head being too far forward because that's what I'm working on. Your head can also be too far backwards if you're like leaning back too much on your kicks. Not too many people fight with their head too far backward this way. My head is not forward only on my kicks. My head is forward like when I'm just doing my thing like this. It's just too far over. So I want to kind of correct this by tucking my chin and kind of like making everything all one line. And what made me realize that this was a very common problem for me, or like very consistent problem for me, was what I showed on the bag about kind of falling forward after your kicks means that you're kind of like leading with your head. So what I was demonstrating there, and the reason I'm so far away is so that you guys can see my feet. But basically, I want to be able to keep my balance here and be able to stick on the bag or come and land in a comfortable way where I'm not falling forward. The thing that kind of helps me, at least like the way I think about how to calibrate this, is like where should my head be, or like why am I leading with my head so much? My correction actually comes from looking at Karahat. Karahat, bar none, has the most beautiful kick in all of Muay Thai. He has the most amazing, fast, never misses, like his kick is just incredible. And the way that he does it, he has the golden kick, so it comes up and then over, but he leads with his chest. You can't lead with your head when you're leading with your chest. So I try to like cover the distance and try to like really come towards the kick so that I'm not leaning back, because the weight goes backwards this way if you're kind of pulling away from it. So I want to lean into it, and I want to lead with my chest the way that Karahat does. So while you guys are practicing this, the simple way to test whether your head is too far forward is whether you're kind of falling forward after things. And if you're falling forward after things, it's probably because your head is too far forward. So you might be diagnosing it backwards that way as well. And the quick fix, like the quick way to kind of try to urge it or like nudge it back towards the center line where it's supposed to be, is to try to like lead with your chest instead. So if you guys are not yet a patron, you can click on the link in the description below and easily become one. My longer technique vlog, I'm going to go more into some very much game-changing realizations I've had in working on this. There are things about like certain techniques, certain fundamental things that are basically the entire gearbox of the machine. And so when you make a change in those things, it changes your entire Muay. It fixes so many things in your Muay that you would never think that just one small change is going to fix, which is very cool. And a lot of that for me is coming through what I've learned and what I've been working on with this technique. So if you guys want to hear more of that, click on the link in the description below and you can become a patron, watch the longer form video over there.